Halo Joker, jomblo tren.
Halo, 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 halo. Jam. Halo. Go for the zone. Bandage, bro, bandage. Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
Where from?
Việt Nam,
What? Where from?
Việt Nam, đặt cái tên viết Việt Nam rồi, phơm.
Cali Windy. Cali Windy là tiếng nước ngoài mà chấm hỏi.
Nhưng mà người ta Việt Nam,
Thì phải đọc biết là mới biết là Việt Nam chứ cái đờ mà.
lìa,
Không, 3-4 hàng gì đó. Bốn hàng.
tôi không thể.
4 hàng cái con chừng. Đồng lắm. Có 2 hàng nữa nè.
Chưa có súng.
Bị bạn bắt.
I got a crossbow.
Hay nè. Em sẽ cầm chảo chém ném chết. Em đang nhắm này em sẽ ném trúng cái đầu bụp. Kìa. Ở kia chưa lướt mà đi đâu vậy? Ăn.
Lúc đi.
Có ai coi cho. Làm người ai làm như thế. Nghe phải nhường ăn chứ.
Chơi game nghiêm túc đi chú.
Đừng có người đâu. Chạy. giận tí mà căng dữ quá luôn. Vậy biết nè.
बहन चौदह thôi. Lagi juga.
Gì? Nghe chú kìa.
Có cái đó không?
Không. Con làm gì mà em không thấy anh đó, anh đang đâu vậy? Ủa sao em bị mắc cái hình đồng đội với lại máu rồi? Hello.
Tao còn đây nè mày ơi.
Đâu?
Mày lướt qua đằng kia mà.
Em bị mắc cái số đồng đội với lại máu rồi. Ủa nào mấy á, nào cho hết rồi. Đây con kẹt mà. Ai bắn mà tìm hành đây. PUBG 2 mấy lần cả trời. Kill me.
What motherfucker?
Sao phải luôn. Nghe được cái cây chặt trên đó là có một cây mười tư nó bắn rồi đó. À. Con trai. Như chứ.
Nghe
Đúng gì. Lớn em ít sợ. Lớn em có mấy tuổi. Lớn em có 3 tuổi nhiều. Cái đó không? Dài.
Nereye? Hı? Hello stuff.
Này trái này, này trái này nè. Em trai nè. Đấy em kêu rồi quá. Ê, anh em mình đi xong. Kìa giờ nó hai là bây giờ thấy sợ à. Kìa em, kìa em.
Number 3. What did you do? ഒന്നുകൂടോ.
Points. To go along with better autofocus, may be a better way of reading the autofocusing points. To go along with better autofocus, Canon says that they have better autofocus algorithms for when you're using the optical viewfinder for shooting or when you're shooting with live view. For those of you who think JPEG files are too big and RAW files are definitely too big, well, you're in luck because this camera will shoot 10-bit HEIF files. Or if you want to shoot these files, you probably shouldn't have spent so much money on a camera and should just use your iPhone instead. So how many frames per second can you shoot with this camera? Canon is saying 16 frames a second with that mirror flipping and flopping out of the way with AF tracking. Now, I don't know if that's true because Canon has a tendency to put some things in parentheses where they say it's 16, but is it really? Or is it 14? Well, in this case, if they're saying that it does do the tracking and 16 frames a second, it's going to be interesting to see if it actually does that, because that is a lot of frames per second with a DSLR. For those of you who wish that this camera was a mirrorless camera, well, you have the option to lock the mirror up and go into live view shooting and get 20 frames per second with AF tracking also. Now that's with the autofocus continually tracking. Is it going to do 20 frames per second? We'll have to see that, because guess what you're giving up when you're shooting with the mirror locked up? your viewfinder. So you're gonna be somebody on the sidelines holding the monopod being like, yeah, look at the back of this LCD screen. This is such a cool way to shoot. It's not. Get an A9 if you wanna do that. And to add to that, and to add more confusion, they're saying that's with the electronic shutter as well as the mechanical shutter. Look, they're literally trying to make a DSLR that's a mirrorless camera, except put it all together, which just seems to confuse me in so many ways. Here's something I can get behind. Dual CF Express card slots in this camera. That's gonna give you a much larger buffer capacity, which becomes more important when we get into the video specs. But finally, somebody has gone to dual CF Express cards. Will Nikon do that in the D6? You do have dual pixel CMOS AF that is covering 525 selectable autofocusing points when you are in live view. That should mean that this is in essence a mirrorless camera when you shoot in live view. We know that it's a mirrorless camera when you shoot in live view, but will it be effective to be able to use the dual pixel AF and still shoot and track even though you're not shooting the quote unquote traditional way, AKA the proper way? Like this, not like this. There will be better connectivity with built-in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS, and there is no mention of IBIS anywhere in the presentation that we saw, which leads me to believe you probably won't be seeing IBIS in this camera or in the Nikon D6. Now moving on to the video section of this camera, Canon says, and I quote, "Best movie shooting performance in EOS history," or as some people want to say, EOS history. You can do 10-bit 422 4K up to 60 frames per second internally as well as with C-Log. You can also record RAW movies internally, which is a big freaking deal for a DSLR, or any camera for that matter. So how much is this camera, Steven?
We don't know.
We don't know because they didn't tell us, but if I had to guess, I'm gonna say somewhere around $6,800. So basically, this is going to be the greatest Canon DSLR in the history of ever. That's right, ever. And it's probably going to be the last DSLR, the last great pro DSLR from Canon. I do suspect that a lot of sports shooters for the agencies and for the Olympics are gonna still continue to stay with the DSLR because they don't wanna go to an A9, though there is a lot of mirrorless tendencies inside of this camera. Let me jump in here real quick and say the images you're seeing right now were taken with the Canon EOS 1DX Mark II and edited using FroPack 1. Now, if you're looking for a great starting point or to speed up your RAW workflow, we created 14 custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at froknosphoto.com/presets. Over there, you can play with the sliders to see the before and afters. And if you decide to pick them up right now, they are 40% off for a limited amount of time. Now, Canon had 3 news updates for their mirrorless cameras, starting with that they are working on future high-end EOS Rs plus new sensors for their mirrorless cameras, working on IBIS as well as new RF lenses, which leads me to 2 RF lenses. One, the 85DS, which we already knew about, is priced at $29.99, which is $300 more than the 85 1.2 RF. And the most important lens that we've all been waiting for to finish up the Hebrew Trinity of RF glass is the 70-200 2.8, which will not have internal zooming. It has external zooming, but internal focusing will be priced at $26.99, which actually isn't that bad when you consider the Nikon 70-200 2.8 f mount is $2,800. But that begs the question, do you buy the 70-200 2.8 version 3IS for $2,100 and adapt it to your EOS R cameras? Or do you spend the more money and get the smaller, more compact, probably sharper 70-200 2.8 RF? I'll leave that one to you. I'm personally spending money on the RF, but if you don't need to spend the money on that because you have the version 3, then just go with the version 3. So that's a lot of stuff. We will get you a preview, hopefully a real world review as soon as we can get our hands on a real production camera. There's no word on price and no word on when it will be released, but if I had to guess, it's going to be in 2020. That's when I think it will be released, in the first part. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Jared, PolandFronosPhoto.com. See ya.
Hello, I'm Jared Poland, and welcome to
Right before we jump into this video, would you like to get my free guide to capturing motion in low light situations? Right before we jump into this video, would you like to get my free guide to capturing motion in low light situations? Well, if so, head on over to the website, look for this orange box, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I will send you that guide for free. Jared Poland, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a real-world review of the Sony a7R4. Now, it doesn't get any more real-world than finding myself on the road with a presidential candidate, Bernie Sanders, to capture portraits, wide angles, photojournalistic shots, and everything else in between. Now, let's get into the review. Now, before we get too far into this review, I just want to let you know it's all about photography. As a photojournalist, your job is to go out onto the road and capture the story no matter who you're photographing. So if you're gonna comment down below, please keep it about photography. The first campaign stop that we encountered was in Iowa on a college campus. Now, we were kind of in a barn with a dirt floor, but it was almost like a tailgating party going on. You had beer pong, you had cornhole, you had a bunch of other things going on, including not the greatest lighting for capturing images. Sony says this is the world's first camera to include a full-frame 61 megapixel sensor that they say will give you 15 stops of dynamic range. Now, being that you have 61 megapixels, each RAW file that is uncompressed is going to be around 130 megs a piece. Now, there is no option to use a smaller RAW file. Now, you could go compressed and get a smaller RAW file, but if you want to take full advantage of the 15 stops of dynamic range, I highly recommend that you shoot uncompressed RAW. When Senator Sanders arrived in his motorcade, he walked past us to then go to a holding room where he was prepping for his campaign rally. Now, this gave me a good opportunity to try and get some candid images. The ISO range in this camera is 100 to 32,000, expandable all the way up to 102,400. Now, I went to about 3,200 on this camera because what you have to remember is that you have 61 megapixels. The more megapixels you have, the more grain and noise you're going to end up seeing at higher ISOs. And by higher ISOs, I mean like 3,200 and above. With that being said, the images look perfectly fine to me.
See the best of humankind in the greatest show of our time.